Hi, friends. I'm so glad you're here, and I want to welcome you back to our Klimt-Inspired series. It's been really fun for me just having Klimt on my mind this week. Last time we explored the power of repetition and how even the simplest shapes, when we repeat them, can create a rhythm and flow in our art. And so today I thought we'd move into stepping a little bit deeper into patterns and motifs. I kind of like to think of it as Klimt's secret language, and that's kind of what makes his art feel so rich and symbolic to me. So a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to download your Klimt-Inspired creative workbook. It's your companion for each of these practices, and it's going to guide you step by step as we go along. So with that, let's take a closer look at one of Klimt's most famous paintings, The Kiss. So at a first glance, it looks decorative. You know, I think the gold is very attractive and appealing, so it draws us in. It's a couple wrapped in gold, surrounded by swirling shapes. But let's take a closer look and look at the patterns that tell, the deeper story, and how we can use patterns and motifs for that. The man's robe is covered in bold squares, rectangles, strong angles, and these geometric motifs, they speak like of strength and stability. Whereas the woman's robe, by contrast, is filled with circles and spirals and soft organic patterns. So these suggest more of a gentle, feminine, and tender feel to it and rhythm. So just to kind of bring that all together, Klimt uses like a shimmering gold leaf. And what it does is it blurs the line between reality and dream. So it turns the embrace into something timeless and almost like a sacred moment, if you will, that we get to peek in or visual, get the visual impact, and it moves us. So Klimt wasn't just decorating. These patterns became a language and a way to express strength and softness and deeper story connection. So let's pause here. I'm going to bring up this slide, this pattern again. I showed this last week, but patterns really do matter, and so this is a kind of a close-up look showing you once again reoccurring shapes and symbols. In this particular case, there's squares, there's mostly rectangles, swirls, there's circles, and then just lines that, that come together, the patterns that merge. And that's how it works. As these patterns repeat themselves, they become a motif. And then suddenly that's where the rhythm and the emotion come in and give the piece, like I said, whole meaning. Like it brings things together. When I was painting the mountains in me, the story started to emerge. The sky was there, the mountains, the water, the tree. But even though the story was coming together, I felt like it wasn't connecting. It was missing something. So those elements, they weren't fully connected. I think that's when I saw the underpainting, like a foundation, but the story wasn't there. It wasn't unified. So here I'm showing you what I meant by that. That's when I went back into my notes from, various artists I've studied over the years. And I came across Klimt and I was like, oh my gosh, this kind of resonated with me, his motifs and patterns. It started clicking. I thought, wow, maybe that's something new. And that's what I felt like. I had never really thought about patterns and motifs for my work. I mean, really in this particular context. So I began asking myself, what patterns and motifs would express the story that was rising up inside of me? And as I started adding the circles and the spirals and different marks to like symbolic marking across the tree and the landscape, something started to shift and the painting began to feel whole. The motifs that I created brought a rhythm that started tying things together. So the sky and the mountain started connecting. And that felt like the mountains were connecting to the water, and the water to the land, and then the land and the tree. So that's the beauty of motifs. They don't just decorate, they bring harmony and meaning. They create a visual language that sometimes we don't even recognize until afterward. But we can feel it when we're creating. So have I used line work and patterns and motifs before? Yes. But this particular painting brought it to me in a deeper, more meaningful way. So it's just something that you've probably experienced yourself, that as we continue to create and show up at the canvas or the sketch pad, that we start developing the our style or our creative voice. It gets stronger and it does evolve. And I guess that was one of the surprises for me in this painting, was that this is an example of how my creative voice was evolving. Something new was happening. So now it's your turn. So choose one of the simple motifs, maybe a circle, a square, a triangle, or a spiral, and then let it repeat. Fill your page with it. Play with its size, the direction, the color, and watch how it begins to shift from just a single shape into a full pattern. Notice what happens to your page as it fills. Does it begin to feel strong? Does it feel soft, energetic? Does it flow? Does it feel, maybe it's masculine or feminine? And most importantly, just how do you feel as you work? Those are things that I would say pay attention to that, because sometimes rhythm of repetition carries us somewhere new. And just like it did for me with the mountains and me. So, whoop, wrong slide, here we go. Up, wrap it up. Before we close, let me leave you with a few reminders. Repetition and patterns aren't about perfection. They're about rhythm. So it's about letting a simple shape grow into something that carries energy and meaning. So you don't need fancy materials. You've already experienced it. Last week, if you did the work, you've already had an experience. So try this again. I want you to come back over and over. Just like we are talking about a shape and repeating that shape and filling the page, I want you to repeat this exercise week after week, or you could do this daily. And let this begin to take you somewhere new. All right. So you don't need fancy materials. Just try this. What we're going to do is I want to encourage you once again, just share something in the community. When you do, you're like stepping out, you're making public, you're declaring that this is you and this is your picture. Just like Gustav says, whoever wants to know something about me ought to look carefully at my pictures. We got to put them out there. We got to show people and express ourselves. So next week, we're going to move into part 3, which is symbolism and story. How images we choose can hold deeper meanings in our art and in our lives. And that's the other exciting part is that this starts on a piece of paper. This starts on a canvas, but it flows, it overflows into other areas of our life. So I want to close with this. Once again, Gustav says, whoever wants to know something about me ought to look carefully at my pictures. So be good to you. I'll see you in the community, and I can't wait to see what you create.